I want to start with a question from Seth Burrish from, it looks like he owns Farnsworth Metal Recycling. He hit up Brett, and the question is this. This is something I've been thinking about a lot recently. What would be some advice for someone starting from scratch on creating systems in a scrapyard? What are some key things that you take into consideration? So I take this question, we get this question a lot. When you have one yard, you're fairly green, what are the steps to put your processes into place? And to me, it also goes into this, like what is the first major move to do in a 1 yard brand new
I think
scrapyard?
when we were going, I think, and this was ahead of my time. So this when I was young, we had a little recycling center, part of our business, right? So if I go all the way back and put myself in those shoes, the first evolution of our business was establishing a covered recycling center, a place where you could get your customers in. You had a system where you could unload them, you could weigh them. They're out of the weather for 10 minutes, right? And you could, you had your bins and your boxes organized by grade. So you had your old sheet, your 95, your clean 63, your XYZ wire. And so your first system is just how to unload your customer and make it convenient for your customer, right? I think that's the most important. If you're trying to build a customer base, right? So before we start building internal systems, our goal is to attract customers to our facility, make them make it as convenient and as clean and as organized as you can. Everybody starts from a different spot. You could just have a dirt corner lot, right? Figure out a way to make that the best customer experience you can with the tools that you have. That's the system number one that I think as a small operator, your advantage is your speed.
Yes.
It's speed over everything because they can go to a big operator who's got 10 trucks in line, cars, and they might get paid a little bit more money, but you're going to pay for that time, right? You're going to be in line. You got to go through the system, their system. Maybe they have an ATM pay. And so there's just a lot more checks and balances and systems on those bigger facilities. So if I'm a small operator, my very first system I'm going to create is the customer experience system. What does that look like, right? And so once I get that established, then it's going to be on my sort. We were just going through this with one of with one of the people that's part of our organization on how to set up and organize your grading right out the gate so that you can get maximize the value of your aluminum. It's kind of where right?
Yes.
When we wanted to establish our business and really take it to the next level was when we bought our first two, old used roll-off trucks. We had a bin, we had a flatbed F450 with a trailer tow behind for our forklift. And that was the next system we established. But you keep in mind, like the theme for us has been customer, right? How do you attract the customer? For us, we knew we had to go get the scrap. Once we could only attract so many with our retail facility, the next thing we knew, the next level was to go attract it with the ability to drop bins and boxes.
Then you're hitting the businesses more. So you're taking care of your local traffic, which could also be businesses, which will be businesses. And we learned that here in Boise when we opened the Boise yard. And this is what I'll say, when you set up these systems, you're going to probably do it different 3, 4, 5 times. Here, anyone that's been into our Boise facility, we tried to make that a drive-through, like our Caldwell one.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. Like, it wasn't set up that way, so we had to make a quick decision to just change it back. But that took a 5-minute decision. I didn't have to run it through a boardroom, to do that.
Just your customer focused was the part, right?
Yes.
Like you're trying to grow a business, you got to grow your customer base. So you're trying to establish what is going to give me an advantage with the customer that my competitors don't have. And if pricing and volume isn't one of them, then you better figure out what the next thing is. And it's probably convenience, time,
customer experience,
cash, whatever that is, like whatever's legal and within that you're allowed to do, you got to do that. I remember us doing fucking hot dog days,
Yep.
barbecues, snow cone days, fucking you name it. Like we did it, right? Because it was all about generating that customer experience and then allowing them to get to your facility and then run them through your quote unquote first system. I think down the road we then established, our converter processing, right? So we said, okay, now that was our first in-house, I would say, system that we built. How we're gonna get converters, how we're gonna get them from A to B, process them, make it efficient, and then distribute. One thing I'm gonna go back like a step. Please think about this when you're trying to establish your customer base, and even on the commercial and the bins and box. One thing that I feel like we took us too long to do was the software component. We were still running Excel, hand entering tickets into QuickBooks. At the time, there wasn't nearly as many options as there are today.
Yeah.
But there's some really good softwares out there that can make that customer experience, and from a system standpoint, and really get you established and it keeps your buy and sell organization
Helps protect
organized.
your
It helps
company.
protect you. You can put systems in place within that system that allow you to show you the purchases. It helps spot theft easier.
Yep.
So if I was to go back and start again today, once I established part of establishing my customer experience would be getting a good software in place that could grow with me, right?
Yeah.
And it can kind of seem daunting at first. It can seem expensive, but I promise you, going through a couple of recycling center employees over the years that have caught stealing.
Yep.
That system that seems expensive seems really cheap.
Yep.
Once you get it implemented. So we use Rematter. We've used Scrapware before, and I think we've had success with both.
Yeah.
And I implore people, it may seem expensive, but don't hesitate to put software in place when you're getting going, especially when you go from 1 yard to 2. You can start moving the data and looking at the data and deciphering your purchases, and that's a big part of the system. So.
Yeah, and it does help your customer experience because, a lot of rec centers, a lot of recycle centers, you're going to have mostly the same group of customers. Obviously, you're going to get new ones here and there, but once you get them plugged in, then it's quick. And then it's also quick for the purchase side where I can go look at these big purchases and I can just pull up the pictures of all the material. And it makes me feel good. I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's that bright wire. Okay, that looks right. And you also catch mistakes. Or you could help deter or catch theft much, much quicker if you utilize it correctly.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Seth. Thank you for the question.